Suppose you are not agree with that we should not use this arithmetic exception class over here. Rather than that, we should have our own class of the exception, and we should have this kind of mechanism, right? Then how can I do? So basically, I'm talking about the custom exception. So let me show you that instead of using this inbuilt exception class over here, how can we have our own exception class? So I'm creating a new class. Let's say the class name is that number not in range exception. Assume that the class name is number not in range exception. This is the custom exception, right? And whenever we create any exception class in Java, that class must be subclass of exception. Okay. So this is the requirement whenever you are creating your own exception class, right? So right now I'm just making the class of runtime exception. I'm not making a class of exception. And basically this runtime exception is a subclass of the exception class itself. So that is going to work. Now here, what is the requirement? Nothing. There is no requirement, right? What we can do over here in our class. So in this class, rather than having this arithmetic exception now, I can write my custom exception class name. There is a number not in range exception, and it is going to work. Let me show you how. I'm running the application, and let's say if I'm providing input 14, and here you can see that we are getting the exception, but now it is not from the inbuilt exception class, it is from the number not in range exception. That is the exception class created by us. Okay, now suppose here if we want to provide any message, then what we supposed to do? Let me show you that what we can do. So what I can have that here inside this number not in range exception, obviously that I'm calling a constructor of number not in range exception. So I'm going to create the constructor over here, that is number not in range exception, with the argument of string, right? Let's say message exception message, and here that whatever message would come over here, so that I will pass to the super exception class, right? So how can I do that? And just I will call the super method, that is super message, right? This is going to work perfectly. So that this particular message would be passed to the superclass, and whenever the exception would be generated, that message will be printed. Now let me see the error. What is the error? The error is over here, that I supposed to pass the message over here. So let me pass the message, that is number not in a range. Okay, kind of. So here now there won't be any error over here. Okay, now let's rerun the application, and this message should be passed along with this exception. Okay, so here I'm providing the input 0, that is not a valid input, hitting enter, and here you can see this is what we are getting, right? So this is how we can create the custom exception like this, that the exception name followed by extends runtime exception or exception, and then number not in range exception constructor we have created, and thus we have called the constructor of the super class, so that message will be printed. Now let me tell you that why I haven't used that exception only, right? Why I have used the runtime exception? So the basic reason is that this runtime exception is a type of uncheck exception. Okay, what is the meaning of uncheck exception? That compiler will not check whether the program handles the exception or not, right? So that is the uncheck exception, which we have discussed in our earlier video, right? So that is the uncheck exception. So runtime exception, or all the classes which are the runtime exceptions, are uncheck exception. So if you will declare only exception, then it is going to become check exception. Okay, this is going to become what? Check exception. So what does it mean? That if there is any statement which generate the exception, okay, type of number not in range, we must have to handle it. Okay, so here now we would be having a error over here. So what this error says, that unhandled exception, right? We must have to handle this exception. And how we can handle the exception? We use the try and catch like this. Okay, so you can say that I'm using a try over here and then I'm writing catch. Okay, and inside the catch, what could be the argument? That is number not in range exception. Let's have the n as a reference variable name, and here I can write a message that exception generated, kind of, right? So that is the basic difference between the check exception and uncheck exception. So obviously that any class which is a subclass of runtime exception, the exception for those class you don't require to handle at compile time. Of course, it's a good practice to handle each and every exception in the program. Okay, but Java provide it's optional. So this is how you can have the subclass of exception, or you can say the custom exception. That's it for this video.